Hey TechnoStuds, let's sum up how we would implement port address translation on a real network. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take our network that we've been configuring and then we're going to connect it to the internet through port address translation. And I'm gonna do it through my home network. So we're gonna actually connect the network, this test network that we've been creating, this lab network that we've been creating, and we're gonna connect it to the outside world. So this should be a really fun video. I'm looking forward to getting into all these port address translations, but we're actually gonna cover a few other topics as well because we're gonna kind of sum up how we are gonna make this connectivity to the outside world. So this is the network that we're gonna be configuring. And what I'm gonna do is I plug this into my router, my home router. The home network is a 192.168.42.0. I'm gonna configure a DHCP address so it picks up an IP address from this network right here. Then what we'll do is we'll set up NAT so all of these other devices will pick up a IP address that's on this network going out, or it's actually going to be of this interface right here. We're going to run into a problem, but we'll get most of the way there and then I'll explain what the problem is going to be. So that is the setup that we're going to create. The first thing that I'm going to do is jump on router 2 and let's just start out by testing out our connectivity. So we'll jump on router 2 and the way I like to test my connectivity to the outside world is I ping 8.8.8.8. It's just a server that's out there that's always up and running that I can ping to see if I got connectivity. And we, of course, don't at this point in time because we haven't configured anything. So it's the interface FA00 that I'm configuring here. So I'm going to get into the global configuration mode. So CompT, I'm going to get into interface FA00. I've got this IP address DHCP command that allows it to pick up an IP address. At this point in time, the interface is still shut off. So I need to do a no shut on the interface. And now it should be getting an IP address. I'm gonna do show IP interface brief. You can see it's gonna take a second for it to come up. It is up though, so just a matter of waiting before it actually gets an address. So I've got a 192.168.212 is the address that I get. So just a side note here, I mentioned this in a prior video, but I always like to choose my network to have a different network range than the default. The default for this is 192.168.0.0 for this home network. I went into my router and changed it to .42, and I did that for the purpose of if I ever am connecting from my home network to another network, it's very common to have a 192.168.0.0 network. So the chances of me having conflicting IP ranges in the two networks are much greater. So I've chose one that's a non-standard so that way I avoid that issue in the future. All right, so next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try pinging once again. I'll do ping 8.8.8.8. And at this point in time, I'm still not successful. So you can pause the video and think about what is the reason why this is not getting to the outside world based off of our current configurations if you've been following my video, all my videos. So the answer to that is that we have the wrong default route. So I'm gonna do show IP route, and you can see that the default route here is statically assigned and it's pointing to loopback 1. So we need to change that because loopback 1, any traffic that goes to there, it's not going to respawn back. It's just going to drop the packet. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that default route off. I'll copy this and paste it on here and take that default route off. And then we're going to put this new one on, which is pointing to the home router that I have, which is a 192.168.42.1. So now let's do ping 8.8.8.8. And we are successful. So we're now getting to the outside world. This device right here has access to the outside world. Does the rest of our network? I'm going to jump onto switch 1 here in the headquarters and ping 8.8.8.8. This is the layer 3 switch. And I'm not getting access. So here's another point in time when you can pause the video and say, well, why does this switch not get access? And the router does. So, and the answer to that is when this router pings out, it's pinging out with the interface that this ping is exiting, which has an address on this network right here. But this switch right here, as it goes and pings out, it gets out to this router over here, but the router then doesn't know how to get back and respond back to this headquarter switch. And that's where we need to implement NAT. We need to create some NAT statements to implement NAT. So what we're going to do is we are going to jump back onto our router 2, and I'm going to, first of all, create the access list. Now remember, these are what's representing the local addresses. So these, I'm going to just specify all of the 10 range, so anything within inside this network can then be able to use this NAT statement. So I'm going to hit enter there. I'm going to use this IPNAT inside list 1. So list 1 is this access list right here. And it's referencing interface FA00. So it will use the interface FA00, and I've got the overload statement on here. So it's going to use port address translation. So I'm going to use that. It's going to use the IP address of that interface. I can do show IP interface brief. So the address that's going to access that network with is going to be 192.168.42.12. So this switch will be translated to this address using some port, or in the case of ICMP, you'll use other mechanism to be able to get to the outside world. But there's going to be a translation there to that address right there. So I'm going to include this statement right here. I'll get that on there. And then I've got to specify the interfaces. Now this is where I'm not going to be able to do these interfaces right now. And the reason is because I have there's some resource contention in here. The router that I'm on is not powerful enough, so I ordered some more RAM to up the amount of resources to be able to use this. So there's a couple ways I could have done this. I could have ordered more RAM, which I did, and it's on the way. Or I could have downgraded the iOS, which I don't want to do. It's been a little bit of time since I filmed the last section. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump on the router, finish off our commands, and test it. So I'm gonna bring up router 2, and within router 2, I will copy, or let's get into the global configuration mode first, and I'm going to interface S000, paste that into there, and that's gonna be the inside, IPNAT inside. Same thing with interface S010, so we'll do the same thing there. And then finally, we're going to do the IPNAT outside on F00. So there we have it. Now we've configured all of those. Now what I can do is I can jump on my switch 1 here and ping 8.8.8.8. And we have success. So what has happened now is this switch 1 is pinging, and it's following the default route to get to router 2, and the router 2 follows the default route to get out to the router of my home network, and then it makes it to the outside. It's actually getting double natted here because as it goes through router 2, it changes it into a private address that's on my home network, and then my home router then will do a natting as well, which changes it to a public address so that way it can be routed on the network. So there you have it. So we've set up NAT now on this network, and all of our devices have access to the outside world.